Let's bring in Republican Congressman Chip Roy of Texas, a member of the Judiciary, the Rules, and the Budget Committees. A lot of people say it's shocking that these 5 members of the Secret Service were put on leave. A lot of people would say, why didn't this happen weeks ago? What do you say?
Yeah, John, it's a great question, right? We're now 41 days removed from the former president of the United States and the current frontrunner and the now nominee for the Republican Party nomination who got shot. It wasn't just an attempt. He was literally shot, and it's by the grace of God that it wasn't a life-threatening wound. And now what we find out is that the very same Secret Service that was immediately pointing their fingers at local law enforcement, they now have 5 of their guys, I think it's 5, whatever this number that today announced, that are on leave after getting rid of Cheadle. But the fact is, you had local law enforcement, as we've seen from now the body cam footage, who were the ones saying, gosh, we told those guys, expletive deleted from their quote, we told those guys to post some guys up there on the roof, to post guys in the right place. We now know that we had Crooks, who was able to have a drone flying literally within 200 feet of the podium the same day that President Trump was there. They didn't post anybody on the water tower. They didn't post anybody up on the rooftops where they needed to be. They didn't have their own drones flying. They didn't have answers when local law enforcement said, hey, we got a guy here with a rangefinder and he looks suspicious, and they didn't do anything about it. So this is why a few of us are going to have our own hearing on Monday in Washington with 2 former snipers, Corey Mills, Eli Crane, who was obviously in the Navy SEALs, 2 great Americans, a few of us, Andy Biggs, myself, Matt Gaetz, and we're going to have Dan Bongino, Eric Prince, and one of the counter snipers from Butler. We're going to do that hearing on Monday to try to get to the bottom of it, running in parallel with Mike Johnson's task force with our good friends Clay Higgins and Mark Green on it.
So let me ask you about that, because that's being described by some publications as a, quote, rogue task force going around Speaker Johnson. Other people are saying, look, the more light you can shine on this, the better.
Yeah, I mean, that's our goal, right? When you've got 2 people the caliber of Corey Mills and Eli Crane, hey, look, I'm just going to be going along as a former prosecutor to be there to try to elicit the information. The American people deserve to know the truth. 41 days later, it is taking too long for us to get to the bottom of the fact that the former president of the United States, again, was shot. We cannot let that just slide away. It's not just incompetence. The incompetence is extraordinary. The DEI rules in Secret Service, the fact that they didn't have people there, all the stuff I just talked about, all incompetence. But it actually starts to look like willful blindness, and the fact that they actually didn't want to have all of the right assets there. We need to get the bottom of it. We need to seek the truth wherever it may lead. That's what Monday is about. And this is in parallel to Mike Johnson's task force. This is not a criticism of that. This is us seeking the truth with experts like Corey Mills and Eli Crane and Dan Bongino and Eric Prince, the people who know what they're talking about.
So we had July 13th, the president was shot. Thankfully, he turned his head at the last second. And yesterday, when he was at Montezuma Pass in Cochise County, Arizona, he held up that graph and said, this is the graph that saved my life. But at the same time that the president was there showing the graph that was saving his that saved his life, the Cochise County Sheriff and sheriff's departments from neighboring counties were looking for this guy, Ronald Seiverd, who had threatened to kill Trump. I mean, is this the new normal, Congressman?
Well, I mean, it sure seems like a whole lot of hatred being stirred up about former President Trump is coming to fruition, as we saw happen in Pennsylvania and then we saw yesterday. Look, God bless President Trump for being willing to get out there and lead, go to the border, go do it irrespective of these, reports that we had that somebody was trying to attack him and kill him. And God bless the local law enforcement for doing the job of the federal government. Guess what? It's not just with respect to Secret Service, it's the border. It's local law enforcement in Arizona and Texas doing the job of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's failed regime that have allowed now still over 100,000 people to be encountered in June and July. Just last week, we learned that there was an individual in Buffalo who has killed 23 people in Peru who was released into the United States. President Trump had the moms of people who were victims. She had Alexis Nungare, the mom of Jocelyn Nungare, the 12-year-old who was killed in Texas. Obviously, we know about Lake and Riley and all the others. How many Americans have to die? How many Americans? And by the way, thank you for your reporting on all of the fentanyl deaths. And I know you've got an upcoming, I think, report on that. I was with a mom last night in Hayes County, Texas, where I live. She's a good friend 2 years ago, Janelle Rodriguez. Her son died from fentanyl poisonings. 6 in the school district in which I live. This is on the hands of Kamala Harris. And any Republican out there, by the way, hand-wringing about President Trump, no. Step up right now and make sure we win in November to ensure that our borders are secure, Americans don't die. And by the way, the 320,000 migrants on top of the 85,000 migrant children who have been lost. They say they're pro-immigrant. They're kids. They're getting given back to the human traffickers and these cartels who are trying to kill them. It is mind-numbing that we're in this state of affairs.
On the fentanyl topic, I think what you're alluding to is a four-part Fox Nation series that I've been doing on the godfather of fentanyl, a guy named Eric Marquardt, who in Wichita, Kansas, cracked the code for how to make street fentanyl and the havoc that wreaked on America. But of course, we're always reporting on a daily basis the tragedy of fentanyl coming across the southern border. Congressman, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, John. God bless you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.